Hey, everybody, and welcome back for another deep dive. We always pick out some interesting stuff to dig into, and today is no different. We're going to be looking at this article, Thriving Beyond Contentment. And it's really got me thinking, like, are we really thriving out there, or are we just kind of, settling for just being content?
Yeah, that's a good question, and that's definitely what this article is pushing us to think about. It argues there's a level even beyond contentment. We talk a lot about finding contentment, finding peace, but this article is saying that that's not the end goal. There's something beyond that, which is this idea of thriving. We were really actively pursuing our deepest desires and really deeply engaging with life.
I love that it's like, we're always told, like, find contentment, be content with what you have, but
Mm.
this is saying, like, no, there's even something more fulfilling beyond that. And one of the things that really jumped out at me at the beginning of this article was this idea of the tree of knowledge versus the tree of life.
Yeah, that's a really interesting metaphor that they use in the article, and it's really highlighting, two different ways of kind of approaching life and navigating life. And, the tree of knowledge they're saying is very much, living through the mind, you know, overthinking, worrying, constantly trying to figure everything out.
Oh yeah, I know that path. Wow, I can definitely get stuck in my head.
Right.
So how does the tree of life offer a different way?
Well, the tree of life is about connecting with your soul, with your intuition, your gut feelings even, and letting go of that need to overanalyze everything and just kind of allowing yourself to be guided by something a little bit deeper.
So instead of always thinking our way through life, we should be feeling our way through life.
I think so. And I think it's not about ignoring our thoughts.
Yeah.
Our thoughts are a part of who we are, but it's about recognizing that they're only one part of the equation. And often we get so caught up in that mental gymnastics that we lose touch with what our soul really desires.
That makes total sense. It's like we're trying to think our way to happiness instead of just allowing ourselves to feel our way there. But I imagine shifting from that tree of knowledge to the tree of life can be a pretty big leap for a lot of people.
Yeah, and it can be. And the article does acknowledge that. It talks about how even when we've found some level of inner peace or contentment, the idea of fully re-engaging with life, especially relationships, can feel daunting.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's like, you finally, like, you've reached this calm shore after, being out in a storm. And the thought of setting sail again into potentially choppy waters can be a little intimidating.
Absolutely. But here's where the article really brings in a really reassuring perspective.
Hmm.
I think it's saying that inner peace isn't something you lose by engaging with life.
Yeah.
It actually becomes the foundation for a deeper, more meaningful engagement.
So instead of that inner peace being something fragile that could be shattered, it's actually like a source of strength to help you navigate all of those ups and downs.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, it's not something you're going to, lose. It becomes a strength.
This is making me think about how often we just try to avoid discomfort or difficult emotions altogether. But what if leaning into those experiences with that inner peace as our anchor is actually like the key to thriving?
Hmm. That's a powerful question. And I think it leads us to another fascinating aspect of this article, which is its unique perspective on the role of relationships in thriving. And it really suggests that relationships in all their various forms are actually essential to really living a fulfilling life.
I love this part. It talks about all these different levels of relationships, starting with this idea of a partner, which it describes as this yin-yang dynamic, and then it goes on to mention 12 core relationships and even 144 social relationships.
Right. And those numbers might seem a little arbitrary at first, but they're really kind of pointing to this concept of not necessarily needing to have exactly that many relationships, but recognizing the different roles they play in our lives and how they contribute to our overall well-being.
Okay, so let's break that down.
Hmm.
What exactly does this yin-yang partnership look like in real life? Is it always a romantic partner, or could it be something else?
That's a great question. And the article does kind of leave it open to interpretation. It could be a romantic partner, but it could also be a close friend, a business partner, a mentor, someone who really complements your strengths and weaknesses and provides a deep sense of balance and support.
So it's about finding that person who really helps you feel whole and, challenges you to grow, but also supports you along the way.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
It's that deep soul level connection that allows you to be fully seen and accepted, and then in turn, that allows you to step more fully into your own authenticity.
I love that. Okay, so what about these 12 core relationships? Who fits into that category?
So these are kind of like your inner circle,
Yeah.
close friends, family members,
Yeah.
mentors, those individuals who offer you consistent support, different perspectives, and a sense of belonging.
Like your personal board of advisors, the people you can always count on.
Exactly. And then, we have these 144 social relationships. And again, it's not like you need to have hundreds of friends.
Oh, thank goodness. My social battery could never
Right.
handle that.
But it's more about recognizing the value of even those seemingly small interactions we have throughout our day, you know?
Like chatting with the barista at your coffee shop
Yeah.
or, striking up a conversation with someone in line at the grocery store
Yeah.
or just, exchanging smiles with a stranger.
Exactly. All of those interactions, even brief ones, they add to the richness and texture of our lives. They remind us that we're all connected and that even those small moments of connection can contribute to our sense of belonging and well-being.
Okay, so we're building this picture of thriving that involves moving beyond contentment, embracing, the full spectrum of life's experiences, and nurturing this diverse network of relationships. But the article doesn't stop there. It goes into this whole other realm of like consciousness and color symbolism.
It does, and this is where things get a little bit more, shall we say, esoteric. It goes beyond the traditional 7 colors of the rainbow and introduces metallic colors like gold, silver, and bronze, as well as these primordial energies represented by black and white.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. What's the significance of these colors? How do they fit into this whole thriving thing?
Well, they represent different states of being and levels of consciousness.
Hmm.
For example, gold might symbolize, enlightenment or spiritual awakening, while silver could symbolize intuition and inner wisdom.
So it's almost like each color is a different frequency of consciousness, and thriving would mean being able to kind of tune into and express the full spectrum of those colors.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And black and white represent that fundamental duality of existence, light and darkness, yin and yang, those forces that are constantly at play within us and around us.
That makes me think about how often we try to avoid or suppress the darker aspects of ourselves, the so-called negative emotions, but maybe embracing those aspects, integrating them into our being is part of what it means to thrive.
You're hitting on a key point there. I think the article seems to be suggesting that true wholeness comes from embracing all parts of ourselves.
Mhm.
The light and the shadow, the joy and the sorrow, recognizing that all of it is part of the human experience.
It's like saying yes to the whole spectrum of life, not just the parts that feel good or comfortable. And that actually ties into something else that I found really interesting in this article, this idea of seeking versus allowing.
Oh, yeah, that's a huge distinction that the article makes. And it cautions against constantly seeking happiness or fulfillment
Yeah.
outside ourselves.
I think that's something that so many of us fall into, that trap of like, oh, if I could just, you know, get that promotion or find the perfect partner or, achieve this one goal, then I'll finally be happy.
It's like we're on this endless treadmill, always striving, always reaching for something that's just out of reach. And the article is saying, that actually keeps us from experiencing true peace and fulfillment.
So what's the alternative? If we're not supposed to be actively seeking happiness, then how do we find it?
Well, they propose a real shift in perspective, moving from a mindset of scarcity to a mindset of abundance, recognizing that what we're truly seeking, that love, connection, joy, peace, is already within us.
Okay, so instead of chasing after happiness, it's about cultivating it from within.
Exactly. It's about tapping into that wellspring of peace and joy that's already present within each of us. And from that place of inner abundance, we can then engage with life, pursue our goals, connect with others, from a place of wholeness rather than a place of lack.
I love that it's like we're not empty vessels that need to be filled from the outside, but rather we already possess everything we need to thrive. But that feels like such a huge mental shift, How do we even begin to cultivate that mindset of abundance when we're so conditioned to believe that, happiness is something we have to earn or achieve?
Yeah, it's a great question, and one that I think a lot of people grapple with. The article doesn't give us a quick fix, but it does hint at some practices that can help us shift our perspective. And one of them, as we touched on earlier, is mindfulness.
Right, that idea of being present in the moment, noticing our thoughts and feelings without judgment. I can see how that could help us, kind of break free from those negative thought loops that tell us we're not enough or that we need something external to be happy.
Exactly. It allows us to create some space, between our thoughts and our true selves.
Yeah.
And when we can observe our thoughts with some detachment, we can start to question, are they really true, or are they just stories that we're telling ourselves based on past experiences or societal conditioning.
So it's like becoming the observer of our own minds, stepping back from the constant chatter and gaining a clearer perspective on what's really going on.
Yeah, exactly. And another practice that's interwoven throughout the article is gratitude.
Ah, yes, gratitude, the classic happiness booster. But
Yeah.
how does that fit into this framework of thriving beyond contentment?
Well, gratitude is a powerful antidote to that scarcity mindset. When we focus on what we're grateful for, we're shifting our attention away from what we lack and towards the abundance that already surrounds us. It's
Yeah.
like we're training our minds to see the world through, a lens of abundance rather than a lens of lack.
So instead of focusing on what's missing, we're focusing on what's already present, what's already good, in our lives. And that simple shift in perspective can have a huge impact on our well-being.
Exactly. And the beautiful thing about gratitude is that it's a practice.
Yeah.
We can cultivate anytime, anywhere. We can find things to be grateful for, even in the midst of, challenges or difficult circumstances.
Yeah.
It's about choosing to focus on the good, the positive, the things that bring us joy, no matter how small.
So we're actively choosing to see the world through a more optimistic lens, and in doing so, we're actually changing our reality.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Our thoughts and beliefs shape our reality. So by cultivating a mindset of gratitude, we're actually inviting more abundance and joy into our lives.
This is all making so much sense, but I think it's important to acknowledge that, shifting our mindset, cultivating mindfulness and gratitude, and stepping into that place of inner abundance, it's not always easy.
Yeah. You're right. It's not a quick fix. It's an ongoing process. It's a commitment to showing up for ourselves and choosing to align our thoughts, beliefs, and actions, with our soul's deepest desires.
And speaking of those soul desires, I think it's time we circle back to that question we posed earlier. How do we actually uncover what those desires are?
Yeah.
How do we tap into that inner wisdom and guidance that's always available to us?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And luckily, this deep dive isn't over yet. We'll explore that very question and much more as we continue our journey through thriving beyond contentment. So stay tuned. Okay, so we're back and ready to tackle that big question that we left off with. How do we actually uncover those soul desires that are so essential to thriving?
Yeah, it's not so much about unlocking secrets as it is about tuning into something that's already within you. And the article doesn't give us, like a step-by-step guide, but it does point to certain practices that can help us connect with our inner wisdom.
Okay, so what kind of practices are we talking about? Well, one that's emphasized throughout the article is introspection. Taking time for quiet reflection, turning inward, and really listening to that still small voice within.
So less scrolling through social media and more sitting in silence and actually paying attention to what's going on inside.
Exactly. It's about disconnecting from the external noise and distractions and creating space for those subtle whispers of intuition to kind of emerge.
Can make sense, but what if those whispers are really quiet? What if it feels like there's just nothing there?
Yeah, and that's a common experience. And the article does acknowledge that, it takes time and practice to cultivate that inner connection. They suggest things like meditation, journaling, spending time in nature, practices that help quiet the mind and create a space for deeper listening.
I can see how those practices could be really helpful. It's like we're so used to operating on autopilot, constantly bombarded with information and stimuli that we forget how to simply be with ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. And sometimes, those soul desires aren't these grand earth-shattering revelations. They can be subtle nudges, a spark of excitement when you think about a certain activity or a sense of peace and contentment when you're engaged in something that truly aligns with your values.
So it's about paying attention to those little sparks, those moments that light us up from the inside out, and kind of following those breadcrumbs to see where they lead.
Precisely. Think about the things that make you lose track of time.
Yeah.
The activities that you're naturally drawn to, the things that bring you a sense of joy and fulfillment. These are all clues, to your soul's desires.
This is starting to sound like a fun treasure hunt.
It is.
But what if those desires change over time? Is that okay?
Oh, absolutely. The article really emphasizes that thriving isn't about reaching some fixed destination or achieving some static state of perfection. It's about continual growth and evolution.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that our soul's desires might evolve as we do.
So it's not about finding that one true calling and sticking with it forever, but about staying open to new possibilities and allowing ourselves to explore different paths as we grow and learn.
Exactly. It's about trusting that inner compass and allowing it to guide us, even if it leads us in unexpected directions.
That's a great point. I think a lot of us get so caught up in the idea of having like a 5-year plan or a clearly defined path that we forget to allow for spontaneity and serendipity.
Right, and sometimes those unexpected detours lead us to the most amazing discoveries. The article really seems to be encouraging a sense of trust in the journey, even when it feels uncertain or messy.
That reminds me of something else that we talked about earlier, that idea of moving from a fear-based mindset to a love-based mindset.
Yes, I think that's a key component of thriving. When we're operating from a place of fear, we tend to hold ourselves back. Play it safe, avoid anything that might lead to discomfort or failure. But when we're grounded in love, love for ourselves, love for the journey, we're more likely to take risks, to embrace challenges, and to allow ourselves to fully blossom.
So it's about having the courage to pursue those soul desires, even if it means stepping outside of our comfort zones and facing the possibility of, setbacks or failures.
Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
The article really seems to be suggesting that true thriving involves a certain level of risk-taking, a willingness to lean into the unknown and trust that we have the inner resources to navigate whatever comes our way.
And that's where that inner peace that we talked about earlier comes in, right? It's not about avoiding discomfort or challenges altogether, but about having that unshakable foundation to support us when we inevitably face them.
Exactly.
Huh.
It's like having that deep inner knowing that no matter what happens, we'll be okay. We have the strength, the resilience, the wisdom, to navigate the ups and downs of life.
This whole conversation has been so insightful and empowering.
Yeah.
I feel like I have a whole new perspective on what it means to truly thrive.
Me too. And I hope our listeners are feeling that same sense of inspiration and possibility.
So to kind of wrap things up, we've learned that thriving is about moving beyond contentment, connecting with our soul's desires, cultivating self-awareness, embracing the full spectrum of human emotions, and approaching life with courage, gratitude, and an unwavering belief in our own potential.
Beautifully summarized. And remember, the journey of thriving is a personal one.
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong way to do it. It's about finding what works for you, what lights you up, and what allows you to express your unique gifts and talents in the world.
To all our fellow deep divers out there, we encourage you to embrace this journey of thriving, step into your power, pursue your passions, and create a life that is truly aligned with your soul's deepest desires.
And remember, peace is always available. It's not something you have to earn or achieve. It's your birthright. So breathe it in, let it fill you up, and let it guide you on this incredible journey of life.
That's a beautiful note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. Until next time, keep exploring, keep growing, and keep thriving.